Remember, please hit like and subscribe for me. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go.
Hi, everyone. Today is Friday, January the 9th, and this is the Moneyball Morning Report for the Benzinga Pro platform. Charts by TrendSpider and Gamma Flows by MentorQ. All right, let's start with the ES. We are taking a look at the E-mini S&P 500. Let's see what we've got going on today. We've got the employment situation. That's probably the reason we've had such a sideways overnight market. And we've got housing starts and permits, that sort of thing. So traders are a little bit on edge, taking a look at what's going on in the chart. So they're a little bit quiet. Let's start with the E-mini S&P. Yesterday, I said our choices were 69.11 for a really nice buy zone and potentially 69.75 as a breakout or a rejection, right? We have if and then. So we did come into 69.33 a little bit. Let me delete this alert and then put a new one on. So we're going to look at 69.33 if the markets pull back just a bit into the floor. This will be the first area we'll have to look at that says 69.33 could be a buy zone. So if it comes to 69.33 and it begins to bounce and hold above 69.35, we've got ourselves a buy zone. So it gives us a little bit of a pressure event that says, all right, if I can get up over that 35 area, I can walk into 39 and so on and so forth. In the overnight, we've seen some very sideways price action, and that sideways price action gives us a relative floor at about 69.50 and a relative ceiling that sits again at our 69.75 area. These green zones and red zones are areas of support and resistance defined by the ATR on the 30-minute chart. So this is sort of a max move to the north if that ATR holds, and that max move to the north, 69.90. The floor is much closer, right? We've got trends that are dip buying for sure. So we want to watch for that. It could be that we never come to 69.33. That's just going to be the ideal buy zone for me in the ES, but I could potentially wager something that sits at this 69.50 area, right? We'd also want to watch it if and then, okay? If it comes and it holds and recovers above that 69.53 area, you've got yourself long action. If it comes into the 69.50 area and loses the edge or bounces and then loses the edge, it gives us the downward formations into 69.33. Upward drafts take us to 69.90. Zero DTE call wall at 7,000. The longer-term call wall is now at 7,050. Put wall, pretty far below, 68.75 on that put wall event. Deep put support at 6,800. So those numbers have moved down the longer we've moved into the week as we begin Friday. Let's take a look at the NQ. 30-minute chart shows a similar pattern. We are seeing higher lows. Yesterday I talked about, hey, listen, if it comes into 25,000 and it begins to bounce, it's going to give us a buy zone. Look at what the buy zone did. Took us into prior resistance. That's a buy and sell at resistance because trend is down. You get another buy, sell at resistance because trend is down. You get another buy, sell at resistance because trend is still down, but if you had held on, it would have taken us into that ATR resistance zone, which is what we're staring down right now. It's that 25,750 area. It is going to be a pretty big line in the sand because this is the VWAP formation, we'll need to probably put an alert right there. This is a space where we can say if it comes into 25,755 and it begins to dip below, it's a fade back down into potentially higher support, which is 25,675, so about 75 points. And if it moves into this area and then bounces and holds a floor, it's going to take us up into the higher gamma lines, which are 25,800, something like that, right? 50 points of upside is my thought. This is a big spot, 25,900, or 25,890, really. And that is very close to the call wall, which is 25,900. We're in a big sideways patch here, right? The dips worked really great. I think it's the same dip formation, but if it comes into 25,590 and it bounces, but it cannot get up over 25,610, it's probably going to fall into this 25,430. It's very hard to say what's going on here. Fridays are normally bullish, but we'll see, right? Have no idea. Have no idea. Dips could be buys, but I am waiting for the sweet spot at the bottom of the accumulation zone. Let's take a look at micro Bitcoin. Our call walls for micro Bitcoin, 92,000. The 0DTE put wall was tested in the overnight, gave us an ATR move. So here's what this tells us. If we cannot get above this line at 90,990, I'm going to remove that alert so that we can create another one. If we cannot get above this zone and stay there, right? Can't get above 91,000. We test the 990, can't get above it. We rotate down. It's got negative pressure back into the put support, which is about 89,700. Gamma level 1 is about 89,000. The trend is still fairly negative, but they did try to bounce up into the wall. So this zone here at 92,000 is going to be the same zone that we'll need to watch in terms of if it holds the level, then we can see what goes, right? Or if it holds the level and then it doesn't, if it tests the level and then cannot hold the level, falls back into the space, it's got, $1,000 motion. I don't love any of this right here. I would be much more likely to try and find something that looks like it's going to come into 88,000 or below. And my sweet spot is, I'm looking for that 85,000 area to see if it comes in where we can get another bounce. All right, let's take a look at, let's go with oil. Oil had a pretty savage fade in the overnight. If we're taking a look at this, the chart is still very sideways. It's got a lot of bearish traction sitting on the edge of it. Hang on 2 secs here. It just doesn't look very good, but this is very toppy looking. So my thought is, let's draw a relative trend, a relative line in the sand. That's $58.23. If it tests the line, the first thought is it should be a resistance zone. If it tests the line and does not rotate back down and get underneath this floor at $58, this chart is going to run to the upside. The gamma lines show the call walls and the put walls pretty far away. call wall at $62. The put walls are down at 55, so there's a lot of motion in here. First support zone is 57. Now, you could take a look at this 57 number, and I think I want to use, let's use 58.90. Excuse me, 56.90. Well, for heaven's sakes. Yes, that'll give it to us. Below 56.90, we should see traders try to bounce. If they don't, or if they bounce and then fade, unable to get up over 57.40, we know it's got downside rotation to the bottom of the box. This area at 55 is what I'm looking for. There's a lot of pressure here in oil. If we lose 55, we literally could go to 45 in a snap. The administration wants lower price oil, but that's not going to happen. CapEx is not going to happen if price of oil is down there at 50. It's just not going to happen. So there we have it. Dips, deep dips, still buys. Big spikes, still sells. Everything else is just noise. Everything else is just noise. So I'm going to be looking for those big spikes to find selling pressure. My idea up here is the failure to hold above 58.23 or the failure to hold below 55.65, and that will give me my trading event. Let's go to silver. Silver is, wow, that's a lot of lines here. What do we got going on? Let's talk about this first. Yesterday, I said, hey, if it comes into this 74.50 and it has a look below and fail, it becomes a buy. Now, the question is, how much time do you want to give it as a look below and go versus a look below and fail? And so that is going to be something you'll have to do on, say, a 5-minute chart. When you look at this edge and you go, okay, I know we've got some action that's likely to occur here. If I see it fail the first bounce and then bounce into resistance and then lose that edge again, I can take a short. However, I know the 74.50 line is really important. So the moment I get up over it and I start cresting into 75, I know I've got myself a buy zone. That's how we need to look at these levels in oil. Okay, and so, in silver. And so what have we got right now? There's a big line up here at 78. And let's remove all of these annotations. See if this cleans up a little bit better. It doesn't really clean up too well because I'm tracking the higher highs and higher lows with these dots. And so we see all kinds of lines all over the place. But it is pretty important to note that this 78 is a number to watch. If we get up over 78 and we hold it, it's going to be a continuation to the top near 79. This is a resistance, an old resistance zone that was actually support for a long time. And so this anchored VWAP could give us 68, 67 on an updraft. And so that's what we'll be staring down in terms of what we're looking at. And so we want to be really careful here if we're trying to short this or we think we can hold on for a long that goes up and up and up. We're in a pretty messy patch. We're going to have lots of reversals in the formation. Okay, so that being said, above 78, it'll take us into these higher lines like 78.60, 78, 79.40, and then 80, which is where our call wall is sitting. Okay, now, if per happenstance it gets up into this 78 and cannot get up over the point of control, which is where this resistance edge is, You wait until it fails here. Notice the top, see if you can manage the risk, and take the short. And the shorts will bring us back down into the heavy congestion zone. Where is that? Old support that became resistance that returned as support. Looks like about 76.19. That's the next sweet spot, right? Maybe right at 76. Whoops. We put an alert there, and that will give us the opportunity to see if price action can continue down or if it's a sloppy mess right there. I would say wait for it to stabilize and choose direction before you move along with it. You can use your moving average to help you do that. All right, let's take a look at gold. Gold, I don't know why this gold chart looks so messy, but we did have the test at 4,500. That was a very nice sell zone. Sadly, it occurred at the overnight formation entry at 6 p.m. Eastern. Very nice frontline support through the put wall, but then it rebounded. And right now we are very sideways. The put wall could easily be the floor. And so that ought to be the line in the sand we need to watch. Right around that put wall event, and that is $4,484. If we lose that zone, it's going to be a space for price action to move down into the closer volume pockets down here at around 4,470. If we breach 4,500 and hold, now notice how these actions work. They breach, they pull back, they test again, they pull back, and if they're moving in the right direction, they'll break up over the near-term resistance that they built in the past. Okay, so watch for that. The big call wall is still 4,515. The put wall is still 44. Nope. The put wall is up here at 44.85. So a lot of upside pressure staring us down into gold. Let's finally take a look at SPY. What are we looking for? The touch of 686. That's somewhere around that 686, 687 level. Let's remove the alert here and lift this. Let's see if I can lift. You know what? Let's remove this and let's remove that. Okay, we're going to move the horizontal line above the framework of support, and that's going to be 688 even. We're going to hold that as our front line. Going to make an alert there. We'll see how the jobs numbers behave. I would say, please don't trade the jobs numbers unless you have money to burn. Just wait until it settles out and you can see what it does. Okay? So a lot of folks picking big upside pressure, a lot of folks picking big downside pressure. And so all we have to do is say, all right, I'm going to look at the lines. 691 is the one we would have to breach and hold, then go long. So it's a pop-up, a pullback into a higher low, and then a bounce out over the top that gives us the upper edges with the call wall at 693 and all of them. That is the call wall for 0 DTE and the larger call wall events. The put wall for the 0 DTE is 684, and the deep put support is 680, right? Dips are still clearly buys, but we're sitting in a congestion pocket. All right, that's it. Take care, be alert, trade small or not at all. We're in very volatile market spaces. I'll see you on the streams. You can see me on the Benzinga pre-market show today, and I'll be on Top Step TV for group coaching and reversal challenge. All right, see you soon, everybody. Bye-bye.